The Clashing Conferences Podcast. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Grimace podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's the Clashing Conferences Baseball podcast. But tonight, we have a special episode with a special new guest because we got rid of Lewis and Paul. Yay! All the bum teams are gone. We got rid of all
Tomahawk
the trash.
chop to all the Braves fans and just get the hell out of here to the Phillies fans.
And what's even better is that Patty has them both tied up in his basement right now. So if he decides to let them out, they might join us next week. But in the meantime, I got the two biggest Mets fan in the game, Michael and Patty. Patty, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here. Talk some Mets. I was kind of looking forward to our Braves representative and our Phillies representative, being here. We're going to have to scour the lands for a Nationals representative pretty soon. So
We tried. We didn't
excited
find
for my
any.
debut here.
I'm excited
So-
I'm not locked up in your basement. I was part of the last basement joke, and I was the one locked up in it. So this is a continuing running joke here.
That's
So
good.
just make sure you put some.
We got the
Go
lights
ahead.
on. You don't want to be here when the lights are off. That's when the worst stuff happens in the basement. So,
I think the worst already happened, which is their teams just crapped out in the playoffs. So let's talk about the team that's still in the playoffs and keeping this podcast relevant. The Mets, aka the New York Grimaces. Patty, talk to me about your team. Michael, same thing. They're playing tonight, correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
about half
30
an hour
minutes
from now.
So, we'll see. Excited to be at home. Splitting in LA is a huge deal to me. Say what you want about not pitching Mania game one instead of Senga, but we're here with a split. Hopefully we got to take at least two in New York. Obviously, I'd like to close out in New York, but we got to take two in New York. We can't go to LA, down 3-1 or even losing at home, So, really what has to happen is they just got to kind of keep moving the line. And, I think they could do that with Severino tonight. And we'll see, Mike, I'm sure you probably feel the same way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with everything you said.
Boys, I have a question because I don't know what it's like in Philly or upstate New York, but it is pretty brick out here in Massachusetts. So do you think the weather's going to play a role in that these LA boys might be a little too chilly-willy when they come out to New York?
I've been I listen to a lot of sports radio and betting radio, and all the people that I listen to as far as betting advice were hollering about the under tonight because it was going to be chilly. So yeah, I'm hearing a lot of the same.
Yeah, I think what it helps is, Severino's been here before, with the Yankees, not just experience wise, but playing in the cold in New York in this, temperature. I don't know necessarily if it'll affect LA in a bigger way, but kind of like what Mike said, I think there could be less runs scored, but I almost think that benefits the Mets, the less runs that are scored. So, that might not be a bad thing, but again, it's just one of those things where all it takes is one ball to carry out, and
Yep.
who knows?
It's
That
hard to
changes the
keep-
whole game in the playoffs.
It's hard to keep both of these offenses in check in the same game. I mean, these two both teams can go off at any moment. They got huge bats in the middle of their lineup, at the top of their lineups, and they score a lot of runs. So it's going to be hard to keep that run total down, but I could see it.
Patty, now I know you're new to the program, but I do have a little bit of a problem with New Yorkers, especially what we call dirty New Yorkers or dirty New York teams. Do you identify as such? And if not, what is a dirty New Yorker or New York team to you?
No, I wouldn't identify myself as a dirty New Yorker. I'm definitely a New Yorker at heart, but I think some people, kind of realize that the city is only one place and we got this whole nice big old state up here. And, you know, as far as a dirty New York fan to me, it doesn't necessarily have to do with the team that you root for. It just more has to do with like how you root for that team. Like, for instance, I'm a Met fan. I've suffered my whole life. People who are Jet fans have suffered their whole life, but still somehow every year think they're going to the Super Bowl. I
Hmm.
don't get it. So like to
Hmm.
me, the Jets fan base is like the fan base to me that makes me mad. The Yankees, it depends on my friends. I have some friends that are Yankee fans that I love that I'm like, you're a respectable Yankee fan. And then I have other friends that I'm like, please stop talking.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but I definitely understand what you're saying about that dirty New York fan. And I think it all kind of depends on the fan.
Hmm. Now, if they're a fan like Michael, that's okay. Michael's not a
Absolutely.
dirty.
There's no dirty Met fans.
No, no.
Now, Patty, you got to explain because a lot of these guys have hodgepodge teams. So they root for this football team and that baseball team, none of which are all in the same city. You being from New York, so many teams in each sport. How do you pick?
So actually, the Mets are my only New York team. Uh,
Oh, so you're one of these guys. Okay.
so I am a hodgepodger. I won't go too much into it, but I had a really good friend growing up from Pittsburgh. So I'm a Steelers fan and a Penguins fan. And then my grandfather, lifelong Celtics fan, as well as he actually tried out for the NBA when he was really young, and he had a family member, pass away, so he couldn't end up playing. But he always said, that's the team he always wanted to play for, and he had a big tattoo on his leg. So that's how I ended up with Boston. So I am a hodgepodger, which I think, in retrospect, kind of there's some people that are like across the board. I'm like, wow, I respect you for doing it. But then there's also like, why are you loyal to the Islanders just because you grew up in Westchester?
Hmm.
So I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
But you got better
Michael.
reasons for being a hodgepodger than me. I got on the bandwagon in 85, 86. Ran with the Bears and the Mets and the Hornets as the new up and coming thing in
Oof.
basketball. And I mean, I've had a rough 30, 40 years of being a
Yep.
fan with getting on those 85 and 86 bandwagons. But
But hey, here we are, Team Grimace, baby. Mike, I got to turn the attention to you for a second because obviously Lewis is not here. Part of me really wishes he was for this. Part of me thinks it might be different that he's not here. So, Mike Gloat, all year long, all we heard was, oh, you were first place, you guys down here. And every podcast that I went and rewatched, you just said, hey, man, you keep doing
you
what you're
just
doing. It's not
wait.
a
Yep.
sustainable
Yep.
model.
We're
And
catching
now
up.
here we are. So,
Been
Michael,
saying since June. It's been what? June, July, August, September, October. It's been four and a
mm-hmm,
half months of Lewis telling me we got more wins than you. We
mm-hmm,
got more wins than you. You're not as good as us. We got more wins than you. Well, Lewis, we started like 15 games under 500 when we were like a month or a month and a half into the season. We were one of the worst teams in baseball when we
mm-hmm,
first started. Made a couple of little teeny changes. We brought Vientos up instead of Beatty at third base. We moved Lindor up to the top of the lineup. We did some really small things that had huge effects. And not only just that, the small things. We started to believe once we started to win. And
mm-hmm,
I've always been a firm believer in belief.
mm-hmm,
You have to think you have a chance to win. You go out there every day and these guys are, losing, it becomes a culture. But when you start to win, especially at the pace that we were winning games, it becomes a thing that everybody rallies behind and it just snowballs. And that's what happened. We caught Lewis little by little every week. We're catching up a game here, two games there, right
mm-hmm,
down to the end of the year where we're right next to them. But what we finished, two games behind them, three games behind them, somewhere in that range. It wasn't a lot, considering the mountain that we were starting behind at the beginning of the year. And then we whooped their ass in the playoffs. Let's go. And Lewis, I wish you were here to tell me, oh, I won the internal competition. Nobody cares. Enjoy your t-shirt.
Oh boy. Now, did Patty and Mike, did you guys ever think in a million years that you guys are going to be riding this wave of success based on the lucky charm that is a McDonald's mascot?
I mean, I don't think I ever thought it was going to start with Grimace, but
Agreed.
I think the thing that like other people you're kind of talking about like bad New York fans. So I'm in New York. I listen to a lot of sports radio in New York. I'm a frequent caller, and there's a lot of respectable Yankee fans. But I think sometimes the difference between Met fans and Yankee fans is that the expectation of winning with the Yankees is like almost like it's tradition. It's this, it's that, and it's almost like the no fun zone. Like, whereas with the Mets, some people look at it as gimmicky. Like, everyone up here was bothered by the whole when they brought Tua in to do the first pitch. Like, who cares? Like, the Grimace thing was fun. Oh my God, has been fun. People forget they had like the rally pimp in May and just like random things. And but that's how the Mets have always been. But it's been good and bad because then there's the other ones where it's like, oh, when Luis Castillo dropped the ball, I've had to hear about that for 15 years. It was a game in June. Like, so I don't think I ever thought it was going to be on the back of a mascot. But I think the Mets have always been a team that kind of rides the wave of like the gimmicks, and then they buy into it, especially when you get the fan support that we have gotten from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The fan
I gotta say,
support has been amazing. The
Mike, we were
amount of
talking
Grimace
about this.
costumes that you see in the stands every night is just it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mike, we were on. You were, and I just rode your coattails. But if you go back to the old pod when we first started this thing, we were talking about this from the jump. Every week, we first it
Yep.
was 100 grimaces, then 1,000, then a
Got to a
million.
million hashtag million grimaces.
Oh my goodness! So I mean, the job's not done, boys. But sorry, I just kicked my camera. But with that said, I mean, is there a chance we have a Subway series again?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way it's looking is it looks that way. Obviously, the Mets got to take care of business. It's kind of a slippery slope. I've been on record, especially my friends who be saying, I don't want it, not for fear of the Yankees. I think the Mets match up really well against the Yankees. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the Yankees have not hit left-handed pitching all year at all, and the Mets' best three pitchers arguably are lefties in Quintana, Minaya, and Peterson right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think it's a matchup scare for me. I think I'm just scarred. We talked about, like, Mike talked about believing. Like, that's been a big thing for me is, like, you get in that Mets habit of, we're going to do this, we're going to blow it. Oh, my goodness, like, this is going to happen. But this year, things have started to change. Hey, we're going to move the line. We had the Alonso home run. We had the Lindor grand slam. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to do something. And I think I'm just scarred from I was 8 when the Subway Series happened. And I remember going to school and just like all my best friends were in Yankee shirts and Yankee this and Yankee that.
That
And
sucks.
like, and like, it is what it is. But I think that to me is the reason I don't want a Subway Series because obviously winning a series of the Yankees would be a monumental leap in Mets fandom, period. But and I've gone on record saying this, like a loss to the Yankees in the World Series, I probably would like go into hiding till Christmas. Like not for embarrassment over the Mets, just for like, holy crap, I can't do this whole Subway Series thing again. But if it happens, I'll welcome it, and I'm just gonna take things one game at a time. I don't know how you feel about it, Mike, but you're a little older than me, so obviously you were older when that first Subway Series happened.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be pleasant to lose to the Yankees again. I can't agree more with that. I mean, they're kind of like big brother to little brother in New York baseball for the past couple of decades. So they've been the team spending the money and winning the championships. But I've been saying this on this podcast all year. There is a new owner in town in New York baseball who is gonna. I mean, you wait. We're gonna buy Soto in the off season. I've been saying this for weeks, Patty. You probably see it more than I do with the New York media that you get up there. The Mets and our owner, they want this guy, and they are going to be able to blank check it more than any other team in baseball other than the Dodgers maybe. And as mighty as the Yankees are, I don't think they can outright a check by us right now. So I'm excited not only just to maybe just match up with them right now, but I'm excited for the future and like just becoming the new team in New York as far as baseball is concerned. I think it's going to happen.
I don't know. Obviously, you're not Yankee fans, so it'd be hard to dip into their psyche. But how devastating would it be if you guys were able to beat the Yankees? Like, would they be even able to handle that? Or
I think this is what I've always said about the Mets versus the Yankees, and in my opinion, like I don't care about the Yankees. Like I don't like really like I don't want to see them. Like I'm not rooting against the Yankees right now in the ALCS for the only reason being that I don't want to play them in the World Series. But for me, what it comes down to is like, I think Yankees fan always have this psyche when it comes to the Mets is like, you see it in the regular season. Okay, the Mets swept the Yankees 4-0 this year. Fine, whatever. There's no winning scenario for the Mets, even if they win a World Series, because it'll be a huge win for Met fans. And at the end of the day, the Yankees would still just be like, oh, well, we lost. We still have 27 of them, this or that. Not that I agree with that take, and I think it's a good take, but okay, the Mets win 4-0 this year in the regular season, and the whole sentiment was, oh, congrats on your World Series, bro. You won in the regular season, this, that. So, like, winning the World Series against them is the ultimate evening point, especially with the quote unquote lack of recent success for the Yankees from 2009 on.
Mm-hmm. Michael, your thoughts?
That last statement that he just said is exactly what I was thinking. There's the lack of success there, at least from their standards,
Mm-hmm.
over the past 10 or 15 years, and they're panicking a little.
Wait, well, hold on. Now they won in 2009, you said, but when was the
Yeah.
last one after that? Was it 2000? The Subway Series, 2001?
So yeah, they won in 2000. They lost in 2001 to the Diamondbacks
Yep.
at home, game 7, and then 2009 was their last one, I believe. Cuz then ever since then they've lost in the ALCS they lost a few in a row to the Astros. I'm not 100%. They could have made the World Series in 2010 and lost to the Phillies, but I'm not 100% on that. Like
I know they lost to the
I know there was
Marlins.
a couple
I
years where it
think
went
you're
back and
right about
forth.
that. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, because I know there was a couple years where it went back and forth. Like the Phillies lost in the NLCS in '07, but then won in '08, '09, and then the Yankees beat them in '09, and then either the Phillies won the next year against them or something else. But I mean, I think it's just there's a standard when you're the Yankees. I don't know. I try to like relate sometimes as a Steeler fan. I guess there's kind of like a similar standard of like the people that want Tomlin fired creep me out because like you've been so successful. I get that you haven't had the playoff success. I get that you haven't had the Super Bowls, but like there's something about having the most titles in a sport that makes you say, we just have to go get more. And that's where I think Yankees psyche lies is that they're having all these successful seasons, but it doesn't feel successful because Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner aren't making the moves that George would make or doing the things that George Steinbrenner would do. So I think a little bit what it comes down to is like, it would be one thing if the Yankees went all in and lost, but what's happening is they're getting timid at the deadline a lot of these years, and then they're still losing, and it's hard as a fan base to be like, we're the Yankees, like go for it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as a Red Sox fan, I can tell you that the Yankees franchise is one of the few franchises that I don't care what happens as long as it's bad.
Hey,
That's good enough for me.
one thing we can
Shoot,
all agree on.
yep, shoot right in that little 6 meter wide hole in the Death Star and blow that bad Larry up. And again, I tell you what, though, there is nothing better than when you just won a championship because anything they say, you can just say,
Yep,
it's the ring.
absolutely.
I want that for you boys. Not so much for New York, but definitely for Grimace and all the non-dirty New Yorkers out there, like Patty.
Thank you, thank you.
Mike, is there any more tap dancing on anybody's grave you'd like to do? Tony P, perhaps? We didn't even address how you guys just ripped their guts out. I mean, did you see the
No, I
fans?
mean, I
Like,
got all my shout outs last week to that Jim Montgomery guy and Greg Stanley. Greg on the football podcast this week. Hell, the title of the episode was "Living in a Bowl of Misery," and that partially was because Greg's Phillies were out of the playoffs, and he's just been miserable about his sports situation. So
Mhm.
I'm not going to dance on anybody's graves. They all know. They all know. They talk their shit all year long, and nobody's chirping anymore. It feels good to be the last one standing.
Boys, anything before we go into the half?
Nope.
No, sir.
All right. When we come back in the second half, Patty might put some water in Paul and Lewis's dish. We might do a little more tap dancing on some other franchises we don't like. Stay tuned. Come back. See you in the second half.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Just a few quick reminders for everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Michael Jordan is the GOAT. And check out our fellow podcaster, Jim Montgomery, with This Day in Philly Sports History. Thank you.
Welcome back to the second half, ladies and gentlemen. The second half that just began right now, not earlier. I'm Matt. Got a special guest here with Patty. Got Michael, our Mets fan. This is the Grimace powwow.
This is the Grimace
Anybody that's not
crew.
on
This
Team
is the
Grimace,
Grimace crew right here.
out. You're out. Stay out, just like the playoffs. So, before we get going in the second half, friendly reminder all the fans out there and anybody else that's watching that we are a sports fan network. We are still looking for people. Patty got caught in one of our snares. Now he belongs to us. See what happened? How awesome is that? Don't forget also that we have the Patreon account up and running for the football podcast. We will be spinning the wheel here on this podcast for the swag wheel, but also you have to reach out to us if you want to be a part of that. So right now we got a couple of people that are going to be entered into that competition, but we're looking for more. So again, we got basketball season coming up, hockey season coming up, all kinds of stuff, college basketball. You name it, it's happening.
College
So again,
football.
college football, MMA, anything you can think of. Come join us. We want you here. We will find a home for you. Believe me when I say that. With that said, Patty, tell the folks at home what your experience has been like, and is it as easy as we say it is?
Yeah, I mean, ladies and gentlemen at home, it is really as easy as it says. Like, it today is Wednesday. Monday night, I met with the guys, after filling out a quick Google form. I saw it on TikTok. I think you guys can find us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and some other places.
Yep.
X maybe, I don't know, but you can find us on those. And there's a simple Google form. Gave them my email. They reached out to me super quickly, and as you can tell, I love talking sports. So I know there's gonna be somebody out here that out there that hears this, and you love talking sports, and that's just what we are. Is we're trying to be a group of guys talking sports, spreading things. We're not trying to be Joe Rogan. We're just trying to do what we do, and I think there's gonna be people out there that love that. So if you hear this message and you're somebody that loves to talk and just you know kind of spit back and forth, I met Mike tonight, and we're already talking, back and forth like the Met fans that we are.
Yep.
And that's what we love to do. So, if you are out there and you hear this, definitely come check us out.
Mm-hmm. Also, just so we know, we're not discriminating against the ladies. We would love to have some ladies come on here, yell at us, tell us why we suck, the whole nine. However, we got to go find some, so we got to set better traps. But with that said, this is a platform for any and all people willing to join, right, Michael?
Hey, I'm fine with the ladies. I'm a little worried about the potential of a future wives show, but ladies in general, yes, that's good.
We are starting a new podcast. It's called the Angry Sports Wives Podcast. I think we already have a couple of candidates from this podcast, so there you go. Addie, I wouldn't be shaking your head like that. You might be
No,
next.
my wife is in. Like, I won't even have to ask her. I'll go upstairs right now and be like, "Hey, do you want to be on an Angry Sports Wife podcast?" She'll be like, "Absolutely." She's a second year commissioner of her fantasy football league. She's all in now. She thinks
Oh man,
What?
she
awesome,
thinks she's in the
awesome.
league, man. She thinks she's in the league. I
What?
love it. She's all in.
Oh my Lanta. Did we just find a den mom?
Oh.
Wow. But hey, come to the Clashing Conferences. You might have a den mom. There you go. Look at that. Wow. A lot happening. A lot happening. Boys, all right. I'm not going to psych the fans out tonight. I don't want to get anybody upset. We're not doing Mat Libs, okay? It's a special episode dedicated to Grimace and the Mets. So instead, I'm going to ask Patty a couple of questions. Mat Libs style, I suppose, but I'm very interested to hear your take and see if they match up with Michael's. So I'm going to start. I always find it interesting when we start with the harder hitting questions. So Patty, what is one of the worst moments you've had as a Mets fan?
Oh, I
And
can
you
tell
can't say,
you.
don't say
he
Subway
already
Series.
he already said.
No,
Oh, I was
no,
going.
no,
All right,
no.
that's
I'll tell you the
where I
worst
thought you
one.
would go.
Here it is. So I know for a fact what my worst moment is, and I don't know why. Maybe it was just the kind of like it was over moment. But what it is was Game 5, 2015 World Series, and Lucas Duda throws to the plate and misses about 10 feet wide, and you just knew it was over. Like that was the moment I was like, oh, it's not gonna be this year. And like that run, as magical as this run is, and it is very magical, that run, there was something about it where like Wilmer crying at the deadline. And then
Yep.
originally they were going to trade for Carlos Gomez and he fails his physical and they trade for Cespedes instead.
I was
He ends up,
so upset, and
you
that
know,
turned
like,
out to be so great.
yeah. And like, to me, that Lucas Duda throw, and it's not me hating Lucas Duda, the player, because I like Lucas Duda's tenure in New York, but just like that moment where it was like, this is it. It's over. So that to me is probably my low point and the Subway Series that we talked about earlier.
Mm. Michael, does that line up with you?
My low points were the collapses, the years where we should have made the
Oh
play. There
07.
were
Oh my
what, three
God.
in a row? It was
Oh
more.
07.
Yeah, I mean that was the worst. But there were like 3 years in a row that we were, not only supposed to make the playoffs, but we were right. We were there. We were where we needed to be with 10, 15, 20 games left in the year, and we just collapsed. And the worst part was that we collapsed to the Phillies. And I got Patty, I don't know if I've told you this part yet, but I'm originally from the Philly area. So most of my friends, like you got Yankee fan friends, most of my friends are Philly fans. So, when you're collapsing and they're taking over, it's an
Yeah.
unpleasant time.
Yeah, absolutely. An honorable mention would be to me, I love probably top five Met all time for me, not maybe stat wise, but top five Met for me all time is Carlos Beltran.
Mm.
So that
Mm.
'06 3
Love
2
Beltran.
curveball,
Oh
like
yeah.
that he looks
Yeah.
at, and after the Andy Chavez catch, and Andy Chavez makes that catch, you're like, holy crap, like this is gonna happen.
Yep.
And then like that, oh, you're like, oh, like just those moments where it's just deflators, like, oh, we're here, and then oh no. So like I was kind of talking about earlier, like this team feels a little different when we haven't had that deflator yet, like, and I'm not afraid to admit I was probably one of those people that saw Pete Alonso come up a couple weeks ago and be like, this is his last at bat as a Met, like this is it, and obviously the deflator didn't happen, but so I would say number one for me is Duda, and then Subway Series, Beltran, kind of around that order.
What do you
Okay.
think happens with him now? Is he coming back?
I have always been under you were talking about Soto earlier, and while I hope they sign Soto, and I think they could sign Soto, I think that the notion of them signing Soto knocks Pete out of the equation is now, especially after these playoffs, is probably a little faux pas. Like I just don't see a way they don't bring him back. He's a Boris guy. It's gonna cost them, but like who cares with Steve Cohen? Like who cares? Like
I agree.
you've already shown you spend the money, like, and the thing that makes me a little mad about this year is like everyone talks about their payroll this year, like they're paying Verlander and Scherzer who aren't even on the team. Like they signed Nimmo, they show they're not afraid to sign guys. So I hope they bring him back. I think he's deserved it, even if it's a 4-year deal instead of a 7-year deal. But I think that those are details that Scott Boras and Steve Cohen are gonna have to, iron out themselves.
I think Pete would really like to stay in New York too. So that's got to be something
Just
when
do
it
a
comes to the
Shohei
money.
deal.
Hopefully,
Can't you just do a Shohei deal? Can't you just be like, yeah, we'll give you
most people
$7 and
aren't
then we'll
getting
give
the
you.
kind of Shohei money that Shohei's getting outside of his baseball contract, and aren't willing to defer all that money to future decades.
Yeah, I don't know if
Mm.
Pete Alonso has an interpreter too. So if he gets in a
Yeah,
gambling scandal, he might be in
yeah.
trouble himself.
Patty, I'm going to assume there hasn't been a World Series if you're not old enough. So what's your favorite Mets moment?
Oh,
I was going to
that's
say, don't tell me there's too many to choose from because I feel like that
no,
would be a lie.
that's actually I think this is a tougher question as a Met fan than the hard moments because you kind of
Yeah.
remember the hard moments.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think for me, I again I'll go back to that 2015 run. I graduated college that year, so I remember like me and friends, that clincher over the Dodgers after Ruben Tejada gets hurt, and then they go out and they beat the Dodgers. Just like that whole series of like, wow, this we really have a chance. If I had to pick a singular moment, I would probably say, I would probably say it would be the opening day. it was either 14 or 15, where Matt Harvey had started the All-Star game the year before, and I'm a huge Matt Harvey fan, and Citi Field put out Batman masks for Harvey Day, and the whole
I remember that.
like that just stadium just felt like so electric. So I don't know. I kind of remember those. I remember the players. Like I remember how fun it was. I wore number 5 growing up for David Wright. I think my singular game memory would be this. My dad picked me up from school in '06 and was like, "Hey, do you want to go to the Met game?" I was like, "Obviously, I want to go to the Met game." It's about 2.5 hours from where I live, and he said, "Yeah, my buddy has tickets like right behind the dugout." So we actually got to go to the game behind the dugout where the Mets clinched the NL East in '06. So I have like my Carlos Beltran signed jersey, Willie Randolph signed my glove, Tom Glavine signed my glove.
Awesome.
Like, so that to me is like the quote unquote core memory as a Met fan would be that game in '06.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Also, just so you know, there's a word for that ability to remember the bad things. It's called trauma. So
Yes.
just putting that out there.
Yes, there is a lot of trauma.
Team, we'll keep it baseball. Team you can't stand, not the Yankees, and why?
The Phillies. I mean, it's hard to me to choose between the Phillies and the Braves. To me, I'll take the Phillies. Oh, stop. I'm on the recording, wife. See, he's yelling at me already. I told you.
I like her. I like her.
So, I'll say the Phillies. I'll say the Phillies, but barely. I think it comes from like the hate of like the Braves have always been good, but the Phillies like somehow were good with like finding like these guys like Chooch Ruiz and like Michael Franco was a Met killer and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. There's just been so many random Met. Pat Burrell. Like, and Pat Burrell's a good ball player, but like, I don't know. It always seems like the Phillies more so than the Braves have these quote unquote Met killers that aren't Hall of Famers. Like, obviously, Chipper killed the Mets his whole career. Yeah, his son is named Shea because he killed the Mets. But like, to me, Chipper Jones and Andrew Jones, Hall of Famers, that pitching staff, Hall of Famers, like, the Phillies were good, and they might get Ryan Howard or maybe Utley in the Hall of Fame. Like they had MVP years out of Jimmy Rollins, and obviously they had their pitching with Hamels and Lee and all of them. But good play, Pete. But so for me, I'll take the Phillies slightly.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Michael, I mean, I know it's the Phillies, but
Steven was right when he told me right after he met you. He said, "Mike, you're going to love this guy."
Oh man, there is a part of me that wish that you would let those boys out of their cage so they could come out tonight and play, but maybe another time. Maybe another time. And again, kind of circling back to what we were talking about before, but keeping it not Mets. Favorite sports memory, period. Any sport, anytime.
Oh, I think my favorite sports memory overall would be my first game at Heinz Field. I had never been to Pittsburgh before. I'm a huge Steeler fan, a huge Penguin fan, and I had never been to Pittsburgh before. And my friend was like, "Hey, do you want to go Dolphins Steelers?" And this was the game where, like, not even joking, if you look it up on record, it was like negative 35 degrees out. It was crazy cold. Like we were putting hand warmers in our boots and stuff like that. But just like seeing that atmosphere of Heinz Field brought me back. So, and obviously I was going to go back as a Steelers fan anyway, but like I went there. Then I came home and told my wife and she was my girlfriend at the time, but my friends were like, we got to go. We went for a Thursday night game the next year. Then we went to my bachelor party before I got married, Broncos Steelers in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't know, just all those games in Heinz Field for me, but specifically the first one, I'll never forget that for sure.
Michael, I know we always try to stick to baseball, but again, favorite sports moment, any genre, any time frame.
We've talked about trauma and living through 30 years of really shitty sports teams. I can't think of like the greatest sports moment in my life. Like nothing, absolutely nothing since I was like 8 years old stands out as like, man, that was an incredible sports moment.
Those are repressed memories, Michael. Good
That's
Lord.
terrible. That's terrible. I mean, I've
Man.
had a lot of good ones. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm a sports fan. Like, I live sports every day. There's good moments all the time, but like, I can't think of a monumental, like, we won the championship or like, something crazy, exciting, great happened. Like, I'm still waiting for it. Might happen this month if I'm lucky.
Oh, my Lanta.
The Bears have a good quarterback for the first time in my lifetime. I'm going to turn 46 years old tomorrow.
Yeah,
And for
but
the
Mike, you
first
talk
time
about
in my life, we have a quarterback. It has been hard to come by good sports moments.
my dad's from Chicago, so I've always kind of had a soft spot for the Bears. And how you talk about highs and lows. I mean, like, if you could frame a moment in time, how excited were you on that Devin Hester opening kickoff return in '05? Like, you had to be, or in '07, whatever it was, like, you had to be that had to be the highest of highs right in that moment. Like,
You're probably right. I can't believe you thought of it and I didn't. Some of the other guys on this podcast were with me that day, not here tonight, but some of the other guys that are associated with
yeah,
this podcast were with me on that day, and they will probably tell you that they have never seen that much emotion out of me
yeah.
after Devin Hester ran that kickback.
That's
But
how I
then
feel about,
it wasn't, and
yeah,
then I think on the next series we stopped them. We got a big defensive stand. I think it might have even been an interception. But then from there, the entire rest of the game was awful and downhill. So
yeah.
like it was a very short-lived moment. That's
Uh,
probably why I didn't remember it.
that's how I feel about that James Harrison 100-yard interception return against the Cardinals. Like, I remember him catching it. I was like, oh, he picked it off. And I was like, oh my God, he got 10 yards. I'm like, oh my God, he got 20 yards. And then, like, Kurt Warner misses him, like, oh, okay, he's still running. And then I'm like, oh my God, he's going to go all the way. Like, what the hell is happening? Like,
And then it was
there's just something
halftime,
about, like,
right?
those big pop moments like that, you know?
And it was halftime after he got that pick, right?
Yep. And then the funny part is I was watching that. I was like 15. I was watching that Super Bowl at my friend's house, and his living room TV was behind the kitchen TV. And so two of my friends decided that they were gonna go like in the kitchen and be like, oh my God, this happened. I'm like, you are not doing this. Like, I'm not doing this. So I went out into the kitchen and I ended up watching the whole game on not even joking, an 8-inch TV. Had to be an 8-inch TV. And I watched the whole game because I'm like, there's no way I'm getting this Super Bowl spoiled for my friends standing in the kitchen the whole night. Like,
Real fan stuff.
exactly.
All right, boys. Anything else before we head out?
No, I had fun on the Grimace Power Hour. That's what we're officially going to dub it, the Grimace Power Hour.
Grimace Power
Like it.
Hour.
I like it.
Are you going to the parade if they
Give him
win?
his first episode,
Oh,
Steven.
yes. I forgot we
see
have to
you
say this
writing
on-
it down.
I forgot we have to put this on camera. I, Patty Bailey, officially declare that if the Mets win the World Series, I will buy purple shorts and paint the rest of my body head to toe purple and show up to the parade as Grimace.
Which is great because if you go back and watch our previous episodes, our friend Lewis made the promise that he would actually dress in purple paint and wear a thong. So we have a lot of equipment to get if this happens. A lot of paint. A lot of paint.
Lewis got big ass.
I love me some Lewis. I gotta say, Lewis, Paul, I love you guys. I miss you. Maybe we'll let you out. I don't know. Hopefully the Den Mom takes care of you better than I did Michael. But with that said, man, go Grimace, man. Your teams were just boring.
Yes,
Boring.
sir. Let's go, Mets.
LFGM. I'm not allowed to curse on this show anymore, but LFGM.
All right. Well, that concludes our Grimace Power Hour. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget, like, subscribe, message, hit us up. We want you. Patty, you're the best example I can give. Here you are. You did great. How do you feel after getting your first episode on your belt?
Love it, man. Like I said earlier, if you hear this, you want to join us, like, come join us. This has been the smoothest transition to me trying to do a podcast in 3 days I've ever seen. So shout out to the guys behind the scenes. Shout out to the people that, I would have never thought to make a fan network. I just tried to do it with my friends. I was like, this is the coolest idea ever. So, if this is something that you want to join, come hang out with us, come talk with us. We'll talk anything. I heard that Mike wants to host a 10-cent parlay podcast where we put together 22 leg parlays for college
I've been
basketball.
asking for a year, bud.
But I heard that he's also a big Presbyterian Blue Hose fan when it comes to college basketball. So anything that you want to talk about, this is a safe space, and I'm so excited to keep doing more podcasts in the future. So thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. Very excited to have you.
It was perfect timing to have you with the other guys having to duck out tonight. So it was good timing. It turned out to be a good show.
Absolutely.
Just like the playoffs, they're not here. So, content. All right, boys and girls. Is the game started yet?
Yeah,
it
we're
is.
at bottom one.
0-0.
All right. Well, let's take out those loser LA Dodgers. Then you guys can probably beat the dirty New York Yankees. And then we can all paint ourselves purple. How isn't that a good idea?
Sounds like a plan.
Love it. All right. See everybody next week. Stay tuned. Oh!
It's like, wait, that doesn't work.